Okie doke. I've put the pillar bolts in and made sure they're in nice and tight. I put a little bit of Loctite on them where they go into the barrels, because when you screw the cylinder head studs into them, if you ever want to undo the stud, you want the stud to come out and not the pillar bolt, really. So I put them in nice and tight and with a little dab of Loctite. So the idea being that any cylinder head stud will come out rather than unscrewing the pillar stud itself, pillar bolt itself. I put some, I've got the new rubbers on here, and one thing I've got to do before I forget is I've got to cut off the cable ties off the top of the tappets. I must remember to do that before I put the, I've got those cable ties holding the tappets up from when I put the barrels on. So I just got to snip those off before I forget. I put a very slight smear of well seal on top of the X seals. I tend to do that, a very slight smear. But, some people say no, put them in dry. I put them in with a bit of well seal and they seem fine. I have put them in dry and they've been fine as well. Particular attention around the oil drain holes with the well seal. And then well sealed the top of the bottom of the cylinder head. I think that's about it. Just obviously I checked all the drain. These are the drain holes in the head that those dowels go into. So I ran a brush down through all of those because there was a couple that actually had bits of old gasket had gone down, even though I'd only just taken the rockers off once. Obviously some of the gasket had gone down the oil drain hole, so it was worth cleaning those out. Yep, I think that's about it. So I'm going to snip those cable ties off. Then I'm going to put the gasket on. I'm using a composite gasket. It's one of those. You either tend to use composite or copper. I use composite. I'm saying I don't know. If I'd have used a copper gasket first time round, then I could have just taken it off and put it straight back on, again, because you can reuse the copper gaskets. But I use composite, but that meant I had to clean all the surfaces because the gasket breaks up when you take it off. But I do find they generally they do not leak from around these oil ways, because you can see how close to the edge some of these oil dowels are, and that's where they tend to leak from. And so I use composite for that reason, so I know that it's not going to leak oil. But it's one of those, you pay your money, you take your choice. The other downside of the composite is because it crushes a bit, then you do have to torque the head down a couple of times after you start the engine. Whereas copper, obviously being much more solid, you don't have to torque it down anything like as much to re-torque it. But once it's torqued down, then that's fine. And these composite gaskets, it doesn't matter which way up they go. I tend to put them that way up only because obviously the writing's on that side, and that's sort of like OCD me. It feels weird to put it that way up, so I put it that way up. Okay, so I'm going to pop the head on, but I'll put the gasket on, and then we'll pop the head on, and then I'll try tapping it down. If the head doesn't want to go all the way down, it's normally because these dowels, these oil way dowels, aren't quite lining up with the holes in the head. And so I'll try tapping it down. If it doesn't go, then I'll just put the outer cylinder head bolts on and pull them down. I'm not doing them up tight. I just want to pull the head down till it's making contact all the way around. Okay, we'll see how we get on. Okay, so there we are. The heads, I just slid the head on down over the pillar studs, went on, just dropped down, and it went, home virtually, without any trouble at all. When we put it on the first time, when we initially rebuilt the engine, it didn't want to go on. That's because those oil ways weren't quite in line with the holes in the head. But of course now it's kind of like, seated itself in that respect. So when the head went on this time, it just went straight down. And then I've just put in the 4 outer cylinder head bolts, studs, bolts. They're just finger tight, just to hold it in place. while they're literally just finger tight, but it's all home and fine. And then we'll get the rockers on next. Well, obviously push rod tubes, push rods, rockers, and we're kind of getting there then. So that's good. Anyway, heads back on. I mean, and it's good doing this. I say that, because it's all new and it's simply just taking things apart and putting them back together. There's no real refurbishing apart from cleaning old gasket goo off, which is annoying because I've only just put it on. But there is, the problem I've got with it is, is it is it not going to smoke this time? Have we cured the smoking? And the problem I've got is that we have to put everything back together, and then there's going to be that terrible time when we start it up and, please pray to God it isn't smoking anymore, because, there's always that 5-10% of doubt. Okay, we've sorted it out, but, we've rehomed it and everything. Was that the problem? Is there some problem with the valve guides? I've even heard of porous cylinder heads, believe it or not. So who knows? But, that's what I say. That's the only sort of tension. There's this underlying tension I've got, is it now right? The problem being that the only way we find out if it's right is when the whole damn thing's back together again. And if it's not right, then, we've got to take it all apart again. So it just takes the edge off it a bit, just that it's a slight worry. And I'm not sure, I'm 90% sure that we've cured it. But, until it's actually running again, we won't know.